Namaskara. Welcome to this video from Mysore Jyotishalaya, wherein I would be discussing about how to make astrologically assisted decisions on one's own education as well as career stream. It is very normal for most of us to have what if questions on, what happens if I do this and do that. There are many ways to address these things. Here I am going to discuss using astrology where one can make these decisions both little easier as well as better. Now let us look at the basis for astrologically assisted education and career decisions. Here what we are doing is we are looking at our strengths and weaknesses. It's a well-known fact that all of us have strengths and all of us have weaknesses. It's also widely accepted that while one lifetime is more than sufficient to make the best out of our strength, one lifetime is grossly insufficient to overcome that weakness. This is exactly what we're going to use in terms of making decisions on our education and career stream. There is nothing religious about this particular exercise. It works for all. Let's see what are the steps involved in this particular process of deciding on our career or education. It's typically a three-step process. Like almost everything in our life, it starts with an introspection step. Then in the next stage where analysis of our own introspection as well as horoscope, we use astrological inputs in terms of arriving at an option or choosing an option. And the last step is, since education and career has a significantly longer span, several decades or so, it needs to be managed, and we can look at how to manage these with the help of astrology as well. Let us look at the introspection step. Basically, we are introspecting, what are our strengths as we understand them, and what are our weaknesses as we understand them, what are our aspirations and desire, etc. when it comes to either education or career. When we come up with a list of strengths and weaknesses, and we look at how they gel with the education stream or a career stream that we have in mind, and we tweak our list as necessary. There are also, apart from strengths and weaknesses, there are also other kinds of aspirations or requirements that one would be looking at. Some people would be looking at whether I can stay closer to the hometown. Some people will be harboring a dream of making big in greener pastures abroad. Some want to pursue a job, some want to establish a business of his own. So these are all the other factors that also come into play, and we can use astrology in terms of reinforcing these thoughts, which I would explain a little later in this video. There is a situation that some people have no idea at all. They have no short list, they know what is happening, they are extremely confused, and they do not know where to start. In such a situation, one can make use of astrological analysis a little bit to come up with a short list of items that they would want to evaluate and pursue further. There are only 9 planets and there are only 12 houses to give some indication for astrologer to provide certain advice and input. And there are million plus options available to all of us, be it education or career. So if anybody is thinking that I go to an astrologer, he will tell me whether I would be a doctor or an engineer or a scientist or XYZ or any of those things, that won't work at all. Here it's a case of we having a particular short list and trying to evaluate what suits us best within the short list that we are in, and trying to move ahead with it. That is what this exercise is all about. Now let us get into the details of what kind of astrological assistance is possible and what kind of analysis is possible when it comes to choosing an education or career option. Since we have a short list that we are looking at, and also a short list of strengths, weaknesses, our requirements, etc. as we understand it. We run through, how true these things are and how strongly that is reflected in one's own horoscope. When I say strength, they are mostly like personal strength. It could be a physical aspect of a person, how is his physique, how much physical workload he can take, and stuff like that. It could be mental, in terms of his patience, persistence, perseverance. It could be skill related, whether he is highly skillful in certain aspects like communication, to so on and so forth. We are looking at the characteristics of a personality or traits that are extremely handy or useful, or are key requirements of either an education stream or a career stream. We are looking at it whether a person possesses. Similarly, a person can have weaknesses too, which is normal in almost every person. We also look at the key weaknesses or dominant weakness of a person. Is it coming in a way of achieving success either in an education stream or a career stream? That is a broad analysis that happens here. Then there are other requirements, like I mentioned before, somebody wanting to be closer to home, somebody wanting to be going abroad, somebody wanting to do a business, somebody wanting to do career. There are certain inputs possible in terms of what is the likelihood of where the person is going to stay, closer to hometown or away from it. These kinds of indications are possible, and also when one may be staying closer to hometown on certain part of his lifespan, and he may be completely staying away at some other part of his lifespan, and he can come back again to his hometown later on. Those are all the possibilities, validations that are possible by analyzing a horoscope, where possibility of achieving what one wants to do, to what extent it is possible, can be addressed in that situation. When it comes to other requirement of whether I should be doing a job or I should be running a business of my own, there are also certain characteristics that are evaluated here. Normally, a job is recommended to a person where the principal income or the value he derives is directly from the work or the value addition he does. And secondary, tertiary kind of income lines are not very strongly visible in a horoscope. Whereas in the case of a businessman, he normally earns income from multiple streams. There is a fundamental income earning stream of value derived for the effort that he puts in directly. That's one part of it. There are other parts. There is return on investment that one gets. There is speculative income. There is transactional income. Cash flow management also gives a certain amount of income. When there is a possibility of more than one income stream that a particular person can have, in such situations, businesses are recommended. It's also true. In the case of business, it is rarely a steady income. It is a highly fluctuating income. When financial stability of a person is really good, that is where one can risk fluctuating income. Or even if the financial situation is so strong that he is able to build something from the scratch, that is also another possibility where business can be recommended. This is where some amount of astrological analysis helps. There is one other very key element which most of us don't think while we are choosing an education career or education stream or a career stream, is how does my education or career graph in my life peaks, and how much of synchronization is there for a normal peaking pattern of an education stream or a career stream. Let us look few examples here. The two extreme cases is the shortest careers are typically of those of something like a circus artist, or it can be a cine artist also sometimes possible. Sportsmen are also sometimes possible. These are all the people who fall under a short career span. A circus artist can be just 3, 4, 5 years. A sportsman can be as little as that, or it can extend to 10, 15 years depending on who is in question and what sport and so on and so forth. On the other end of the spectrum, there are careers which last for 60, 70 years. We know Ram Jetmalani, right? And he was working 90 plus. So I don't know, he must have had a career which is at least 70 years a span. So we have to look at the horoscope, which says whether such a kind of synchronization in the chosen career path and what is seen in the horoscope match or not to a greater degree. Because a doctor or an advocate or any form of consultant, architect and all that, they put in a lot of years for education to train themselves, and they put in a lot of years of work in establishing themselves. Once their work gets recognized, every other successful project they do, there will be a significant value addition to the work they do. And typically these kinds of professional line peaks when a person is 40 plus and not before. So if somebody has to really get benefited out of these things, the basic requirements of having a good lifespan as well as a very good opportunity to peak in career late in life, and also having the interest and the passion to keep working when he is 50 plus and 60 plus is often is a key criteria for somebody to succeed significantly. And finally, this exercise of evaluating one's own career option or even education option is never a one-time exercise. We need to redo it as many times as necessary, because even education can last for anywhere between 13, 14 years to 20, 25 years. If somebody is doing a double doctorate or a specialization, it's easily a 25-year span to complete their education. And as I explained before, different career streams will have different span. Just for a handful of years to 60, 70 years is the difference. So when these education streams and career streams last that long, there will always be a need to kind of take stock of the situation and evaluate what is happening is right or not, and decide on making changes as necessary. However, this is a strategic decision making exercise. This is never done several times a day, in the morning, afternoon or evening, or even weekly or monthly. At best, it can be done, in few years twice. It's typically, it is done at an interval of a year or 2, 3 years or 5 years, something like that. Make a note of it. It is more a strategic decision-making exercise. It is not a daily routine thinking and decision-making that we do. Now, let's discuss a little bit about how do we manage education stream and a career option we have chosen for ourselves. Ups and downs are a part of life. It happens to everybody. Some go through roller coaster ride with several somersaults. For some, it may not be that bad. Some scale very high heights and carry anxiety along with it as well. And there can be a few people where life can be a flat monorail ride as well. So when there are lots of variations, there is a need to kind of take stock of our own situation and make decisions for how do we manage going forward whenever a need is felt for the same. We have to remember one thing. When things are going great, it's also a very much required, but that we take stock of the situation, because when we have a great time, we derive a lot of value by maximizing the risk that we can take at that point in time. If we just resign to the fact that everything is going fine for me and what I'm doing is working for me, and we just stick to it without making decisions, that may not be a great approach either. This is not done when only things are getting bad for us. And obviously, we definitely do it when things are not at all moving for us, and we are facing an uphill ahead of us, and we are kind of not very confident of taking care of ourselves very well. That's also another situation that we look at these things. We have to understand one principle: when our time, as we determine astrologically, is great, we derive the maximum benefit that is provided by the environment we are in. We are doing a job in a certain segment, a certain domain, and there is a certain mean valuation, peak valuation, and low valuation in each of the domains that we work and each of the businesses that we do. When our time is great, we have to think of moving our domain to whatever best that we can move to, and doesn't worry about what is the risk involved in that particular process, because the confidence we can gain from the good time that we are having. This is one great use of astrology. Obviously, the other part is when it is things are not going great, and we don't know how to deal with it. That is when we need to look at what is the safer option for us. We need to cut down our risk and understand what is my worst case scenario. Understanding my worst case scenario with some amount of astrological input prepares us for a rough ride, and in that situation, even when the ride is rough, it is slightly better because we would be mentally prepared for it. And secondly, we need to calibrate our aspirations, desires, and plans to suit our prevailing situation. The key thing here is, it is all great to say, I will make things happen come what may under any situation. The slogan looks great, but it works only for few, and a vast majority would have burned their fingers by pursuing that. The smarter approach is, I will pursue something that is more likely to work for me under the current circumstances. This is where one can make use of astrology to make such decisions that are more likely to work, rather than trying to push things very hard and making things work come what may. Thank you.